In this video, I want to talk about my Fujifilm camera kit, why I got them, how they make my work, just a little bit better, and how slowly but surely they are replacing my Sony cameras. Let's start with the lenses first. As you can see here, I have 9 lenses, which is way too much. And the first and only zoom lens that I have is the Fujifilm 16-80, and I got this one kitted out with the XT4. It's a great lens. I don't like the fact that it's not a parafocal lens. My favorite Sony lens for video is the 18-105, especially for documentary work. It's an APS-C lens, but unlike this one, it has an internal zoom. I hate lenses that zoom outwards like this. It can gather dust. It makes this one, they say it's weather sealed, but if you work like me in a very dusty environments most all of the time, this one will get broken very easily. But this one survived 2 documentary projects in the desert, so I think that's really a weather resistant lens. The autofocus is great, the image quality is great. It's not the same image quality that you will get from a prime lens, but that's expected from a budget, relatively budget kit lens right here. But I like that it's an f4 constant aperture. It's stabilized lens. I mean, besides the parafocal thing, because when you zoom during video, the focus will shift. But yeah, other than that, it's the only zoom that I will be having with these Fujifilm cameras. Let's put this one here. The next one is the Samyang manual focusing lens 12mm f2. This one, I got a crazy deal out of it. I think it was like a 150 USD. So I was like, hey, I don't have a lot of ultra-wide lenses. I don't shoot a lot of ultra-wide scenes. I'm sure it's great for astrophotography and landscape photography, 2 things that I don't really do with my cameras. I like the focus is smooth and dampened. It's a great lens. It's sharp. It's cheap. So I think it doesn't hurt to keep it in my kit. I think I only used it once in like an event photo covering thing, just to get a couple of wide pictures to present the whole scene. So yeah, these lenses, they're not, if you're a beginner, I think this is one of the last lenses that you can get, but hey, it depends on what you do. And my newest lens that I got for the Fujifilm, I just got this last week. It's still brand new. I haven't used it at all. Just a few tests in the studio. It's the Sigma 16mm 1.4. But I have its brother or sister for the Sony cameras. I used it, in the era of the A6300, A6400 Sony cameras. These are great. I mean, the Sigma 16, 30, and 56 1.4. If you just got, any Fujifilm cameras and you're thinking of what prime lenses do you get these. Yes, they don't have the aperture control ring on the lens, but they compensate with the excellent image quality, excellent autofocus, and the fast aperture of 1.4. Especially when you're using APS-C cameras, I mean, preferably you should have 1.4 lenses because they're not the best in low light. I mean, the max ISO I would go to these like 1600, 3200 will be a stretch. So 1.4 lenses can be your savior. The next lens, one of my favorites, is the 23mm f2. I think I can do probably a whole shoot, photo or video or whatever, using just this lens. This is an equivalent of like a 35mm. It's not super fast, it's just f2, but it makes up for that fact by being extremely small. It's really light. So if you couple that with something like an XE camera, perfect. I mean, good for street photography, documentary photography, lifestyle, video. It's very fast autofocus, very silent, weather resistant, has the aperture controlling, you know, perfect lens. But it's not great for low light, and I wanted to test like the cheapest lenses that you can get for Fujifilm. So I got this $100 lens, TT Artisan 23mm 1.4, and amazingly this lens is sharp, wide open, especially in the center, not that much in the corners, but most of the Fujifilm lenses are not sharp corner to corner in my experience. I might be wrong, but I don't pixel peep that much. Yeah, I like the focus ring in here. I tried it for, you know, a couple of videos with my friends just playing around, and I will definitely keep this in my kit for, you know, low light photography, because in video I like sometimes manual focus more than autofocus. But the only inconvenience with this lens, it feels like twice as heavy as the 23f2 Fujifilm lens, because I think it's made of metal and the glass may be heavy, but it's excellent quality for a $100 lens. The next, I think, it's not just my favorite. I think most people I saw online that use Fujifilm cameras love this 35mm 1.4. It's a magical lens. It's great for photography. I think that it has that special sauce, if you will. For video, I use it manually because it has, you know, ticking noise. It's like a bomb. It's like a bomb being, you know, going to explode at any time. Yeah, but it's a great lens. I got this also on a deal. It was brand new, but I got it I think for like $300, which is great for this kind of lens. If you find it more expensive, maybe not worth it. But if you're doing just photography, it's great. It doesn't have the fastest autofocus, but I used this lens for documentary photography work in a very chaotic place, and it got the job done. So, and I'm not an easy person to please with camera performances, so this one is great. Okay, this one is a super heavy lens. It's my only macro lens. It's a TT Artisan 40mm f2.8. It has 1:1 magnification.
For incredible close-up detail, use a true macro lens with 1:1 magnification. This allows life-size reproduction, so a 5mm bug is 5mm on the sensor. Zoom macro lenses only go to 1:2 or 1:4 at best, losing impact. Macro lenses let you fill the frame at super close distances, maintaining sharpness and contrast to capture every microscopic feature. If you want to unlock the micro world, go for 1:1 macro.
I mean, I've used it just to shoot some B-roll. It's a great macro lens, and I got it just for that purpose. Extremely cheap as well. I don't recall, I think it was $80 or $100. I will put the price here. Yeah, it's a great macro lens, because I'm not a macro photographer. I will never be a macro photographer. I don't get macro photography jobs, but I think this will be also what will come in handy if you're a wedding photographer and you want to capture, you know, one of those images of the rings and stuff. It's great, but it has one of these weird caps, rotating caps. It's appalling. And you can see that the lens elements are deep inside here. So when you focus in the nearest distance, it can get darker. So make sure you have, you know, tons of light when you're using this lens. Okay. Whoever came with this design should be fired ASAP. Kidding. Okay, and another cheap lens, the TT Artisan 50mm 1.2. I wanted to get a lens. The 50mm for me in Fujifilm, I don't use that too much, but it's great, for a quick portrait, or if you're, you can't really get too close to your subject. This lens is also very heavy. It seems very well made. The elements, the lens elements look, very colorful and shiny. This 50mm 1.2 lens, I mainly got it for the 1.2 aperture, because my other 50mm is the f2 version. This one is much lighter, it's much better for street and documentary photography work. So, and this one is substitute if I know that I will be going in a dimly lit environment, and also for video work, because the focus is great, but the minimum focus distance is at 50 centimeters, which is not great. But as I said, I only use this lens when I cannot go closer. When I cannot go closer to my subject. Okay, so this is for the lenses. As for the cameras, the Fuji XT4, it's a workhorse of a camera. I've used this also in the desert. I used it for like a 3-day hardcore photo and video work in really hot environments. I know it's an older camera now, but 4K 60, 10-bit, good autofocus, amazing colors out of the cameras. I love the film simulations. I use them in video as well. I don't shoot log with these cameras because I think using the R400 film simulations in video and F-log give you pretty much the same dynamic range. So the use of F-log is pretty much useless in these cameras. Also, when you use F-log, the autofocus gets a bit crazier, but I can shoot a feature film with this. I can shoot a documentary. I can do, it's I remember on Gerald Andon video, he called this camera the jack of all trades and master of some, and I think it's a pretty fitting description for this camera. So yeah, it remains in my kit. And also, it's extremely cheap. And the second camera is the Fuji XE4. I wanted to get the Fuji X Pro 3, but where I live, I only found a deal, an amazing deal for this camera. So it's a great B camera, and I use it as an A camera for photography. I have the accessory for the thumb grip, and I added a grip because somehow Fujifilm decided that you don't need a grip on such a small slippery camera. So I got these couple of accessories. I love taking photographs with this camera. So light. I can use the dial, and I use the dials on the Fujifilm cameras all the time. I know a lot of people, they say it slows you down, etc. For me, they don't, because I sometimes take pictures, especially with the XE4. I keep the screen locked. Sometimes I take pictures without even looking neither at the viewfinder nor at the screen, because I got so used to knowing, the frame. If I'm shooting 35mm, I know exactly, not exactly, but approximately, where is my subject. And because I hate these tilting, side tilting screens, this camera is not for, vloggers or YouTubers. So Fujifilm, what the hell? I know they fixed it with an XT5, but let's keep that later on in the video. But it's great. You can use this as a pretend film camera. Just close the screen and use the viewfinder if you want. Great. For the XE4, this is better because I can tilt the screen a little bit, because especially if I'm shooting down the waist. But something is terribly wrong with the design of these sensors, viewfinder sensor, because if you make the screen go back furthermore and you bring it closer to your body for like hip shooting, the image will flip and will make the camera go crazy. So I don't like that. I looked for solutions, but there isn't none. But yeah, great camera anyways. But let's say the big daddy or the sexy lady, whatever your preference is, of the Fujifilm cameras is the famous X100V. Yeah, this is the first ever Fujifilm camera that I got, and I got an insane deal for the Fuji X100V. If I tell you how much money I paid for this lens, you will murder me, because it was so cheap. And I've seen it on eBay for like $2,000. I would never pay that kind of money for this camera, as great as it is. So yeah, surprisingly, this shoots also good video. I mean, you can only do this like for 10 minutes or 15 minutes. So it's good for, being like a C camera for a quick interview or something like that. But for photography, I mean, the silent shooting, the leaf shutter, I mean, yeah, this is like the poor man's Leica. This is, yeah, I mean, I can rant all day about this camera, but I love this camera so much. I think I can sell all of my gear. This one will never leave my bag. All right, let's be honest. The Sony cameras are professional workhorses of the cameras. But for me, these cameras, I think they're like a work of art. When I look at this camera and I see it and I touch the dials, I mean, it's like a kid playing with a toy, and gets me excited about photography. It reminds me of why I got into photography in the first place, because for me, first, this was a hobby. I mean, I didn't even expect that will become a job, or, it can be profitable in the end. And my goal for the next year and to do this as a hobby and do professional work in a totally different industry, because I like to go out in the field, make images, make documentaries exactly the way I see them, create for the purpose of creating and sharing things with people, and enjoying an artistic experience, because this is why these things exist. And we get quite sucked in the marketing and the business side of, selling you different cameras every few months. And YouTube has been, a big problem with, loading the gear acquisition syndrome for most photographers and filmmakers. I'm happy with, this selection of cameras and lenses. I can shoot almost anything that I want to shoot with this thing. So yeah, I think it's case closed. I mean, I don't care anymore. I hope that wasn't too boring to explain. I don't know why I'm even making this video. I don't even watch a lot of videos of other photographers talking about their camera gears and stuff. Because let's be honest for a second, I think the most liberating feeling that any photographer can have is knowing for a fact that you can get the job done using almost any camera with any lens. It's ridiculous how good cameras have become. So you can get any camera for any brand, even the cheapest ones. I mean, I can do my work with a couple of Canon R10s, because I think those are like the cheapest, mirrorless Canon cameras right now. I can, yeah, it doesn't really matter. So this video is pointless, This constant obsession with camera gear really boggles my mind. Remember, why did you get into photography in the first place? Was it to keep buying expensive crap and showing them to your friends and flexing about how you got, the latest and greatest cameras? Because, buddy, let me remind you, no one cares. Besides, your friends who are also photographers sitting in the coffee shop and, showcasing who has the biggest, camera dicks. no one cares, no one gives a flying rat's ass about what camera do you use. Because I've been reading a lot of, the history of documentary photography and street photography to, to see what has been done in, enjoying, this art for what it is. And most of the great photographers, they used, really crappy cameras by today's standards. So if you cannot get this job done with a, $600, $700 camera, you're in the wrong industry. But at the same time, if you have the funds and you want to enjoy super expensive cameras, no one should judge you for that, because that's your money, you earned it. Do whatever you want, but don't preach, for people, especially for young people, that you need this kind of camera or that kind of camera, or this lens has tiny bit chromatic aberration and this lens is not super sharp in the corner. No one cares. If you can have the best, the cleanest, sharpest image shot at 5 million ISO, but it can be a horrible image. But you can have an image that is out of focus, filled with noise, and it can be a super amazing image that connects with people, emotionally, etc. I got bored making this video. Just use whatever camera you have, make stories, share them. Please send me messages, show me your work. Let's discuss more important things than this kind of stuff. So the next video will be about, tips on how to make stories with still photographs in like a long or short form documentary project. So yeah, gotta go to sleep. See you. Bye.